welcome to another brand new spoiler review episode here from the
Geek
Buddies!
Hey! That's right, we're coming to you. That's good.
Vogel went out last night, so that's literally him running out of batteries just now.
It is the second Pride weekend in Los Angeles, and I am very, very proud, and consequently, I am very tired.
Absolutely. I thought that was him recharging. We know, Shannon and I know, your batteries only need 2 or 3 hours of rest before they're ready to go again. It's insane.
Keep going. Just keep going.
But speaking of keep going, we're going forward with episode 1 here of Ms. Marvel that dropped this week from Disney Plus and, of course, the fine people at Marvel Studios, starring Iman Vellani. You might not believe this. This is her first on-camera acting role. Insane, taking on the role of Kamala Khan.
Kamala Khan.
I'm trying. I gotta get that. You know, I repeat it all the time now, trying to get it in my mouth. And her history or her story, origin story here as Ms. Marvel. The first episode was called Generation Y. We're going to jump into all of it here and break it down for you, as you know the Geek Buddies can do. But let's introduce ourselves first. I'm the Outlaw John Roker, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies. Mike.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
Shan.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer where you can see some work on Netflix right now. Strawberry Shortcake, Barry in the Big City. Executive produced by that dehydrated guy right there, Michael.
That's me.
And what a color palette that matches Ms. Marvel, I would imagine, because this is also a very vibrant show, as Strawberry Shortcake is as well. So yeah, good stuff to get into here. And of course, we are brought to you and powered and sponsored by Carbon Health. Thank you so much, Carbon Health, staying on as a supporter and a sponsor here of the Geek Buddies and the Outlaw Nation. If you got some healthcare issues you want to get taken care of, you got some questions you want to have answered healthcare-wise, head on over to carbonhealth.com. They can help you virtually. They can help you in person. They got all kinds of things they can help you with for sure. They got 100-plus locations all over the country, 50-plus locations in California alone, and they've got an app that you can download on your phone and check anytime you have any healthcare questions, concerns, or needs. So head over there, carbonhealth.com. They're testing people for COVID now. The numbers are going up. Get those test packets and get tested there as well. All right, let's get into this thing. Let's ask you first, Mike. We always start with you. Generation Y, first episode. So much going on here. We get introduced to Kamala Khan and all that she is navigating in her life, her Pakistani Muslim family. We get into her high school, her daydreaming, her fascination with Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. Also, we get her getting her powers through a bracelet and going to this Avenger Con, trying to get into this Avenger Con. Her dad coming out in that Hulk outfit made me almost cry. It was so awesome. And then, boom, at the end, we see her use her power. So, Mike, talk to me about this overall first episode as an introduction and origin story for Ms. Marvel.
Well, first, I just want to say, I think the overwhelming feeling I had watching this was relief. I was relieved. I was so worried. Not because anything looked bad, but just because Miss Marvel is such a popular character and Kamala Khan is so big in the MCU and she's so beloved, or in Marvel Comics, and she's so beloved by so many. And I was like, of all the shows that you have got to get right, you have got to get this right. And thus far, based on the first episode, I feel like they really got it right. I mean, the power switch aside, which I think, most people understand why they did it. I think we'll get into that. But overall, I thought she was amazing. I thought the vibe was great. I think we talk a lot about Marvel. I think we talked about this with Multiverse of Madness and Sam Raimi. There is a type of feel that you go, this feels like Marvel. And when something doesn't feel like Marvel and kind of is out of place, it has to be really good to make you sort of go, okay, well, this is part of the Marvel universe. Like Taika Waititi with Thor, that did not feel like the Marvel universe, but we were like, that's awesome, we'll take it. And I feel like Ms. Marvel is so different from the other Disney Plus Marvel shows. It has a completely different vibe. It doesn't quite feel like anything else in the Marvel universe, but it is so charming, so visually fun, that I think they really nailed it. I think they spent so much time really outlining Kamala's story, Kamala's friends, most importantly, Kamala's family. And I think even though we only get a hint of her powers at the very end of the episode, they built the perfect base. Like, this is great.
Yeah, Shannon, there's a lot of universal things that you can connect to here as a teenager. You know, it doesn't matter what situation you're in. Most teenagers feel like they're in a situation with their family where they feel a little restricted. They want to push the boundaries. They want things that they want to do. And we see her on this journey. You know, she's a daydreamer. All three of us are daydreamers in certain ways for sure. And you see her drawing her stuff and doing these YouTube animations and narrating the Avengers big battles, where of course Captain Marvel is the star. All of that we see her go through. And then we see her actual school life, which she has a female sort of bully, an antagonist, shall we say. She's got a best friend, two best friends, really. One that's at high school, and also a female Muslim teenager in the mosque, and also her other friend there who's helping her navigate this high school. So talk to me what you felt about, like, you know, because full disclosure, all three of us are dudes. None of us are Muslim.
What?
So did this like kind of key you into a female's point of view, both on the Marvel fandom, but also as a teenager in this kind of meta world that they've built here within this show?
Oh, 100%. Even though, like, I didn't grow up around a lot of, Muslim kids, I mean, the idea of very conservative parents who want their child on a very, very strict path, I mean, I think that sort of transcends religion. Like, I think we've all known those kids. And so even though my parents weren't like that, I definitely understood, like, there are families like this who there is so much expectation placed on their children. And there's definitely a difference between how parents treat sons and daughters. I mean, I'm the youngest of three. Both of my older siblings are girls. So by the time I got to be a teenager, I think my parents were just exhausted. But there was a lot. I had a lot more freedom than both of my sisters. One, because I was the youngest, they were exhausted, but also because I was a boy, and there's a different set of expectations placed on it. And, the show as a whole, just based off of the first episode, obviously, I think Disney Plus shows who have a directing team that the directors only go by one name, that seems to be the way to go, because Adil and Billal, definitely, I'm getting those Bert and Birdie vibes from Hawkeye. There is so much creative energy behind the camera that's making its way in front of the camera. The way they're able to sort of insert Kamala's point of view with everything that she does, with her drawings, with the graffiti on the wall. It's so much fun. Like, again, as Vogel said, like, this is very different. I mean, the closest thing that I think we have to point to with this episode is Spider-Man Homecoming. I mean, this is a younger character. Okay. This is someone in high school. Right. But you just, it's this shot in the arm of energy that I feel like it's been a minute since we've had that in the MCU. And it's a really welcome change, because it was just so bright. It was so optimistic, and it was just so much fun.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Fun is the number one thing that I come out of. And relief, I think, Mike, is a valid feeling to have after this, because, I mean, there have been, kind of middling responses to Moon Knight, middling responses to Multiverse of Madness. But this seems to have overall been very well accepted by critics and reviewers and pundits. It stands at 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is the highest anything has ever scored in the MCU, movie or TV show wise. It's just above Black Panther by 1%. Now the review bombing is happening, so we'll push that aside. But I also want to give some love. You mentioned the directors, Shannon. I want to give some love to Bisha K. Ali, who is the series creator and head writer. I think capturing this kind of universal yet specific story, it is a tough line to walk and a tough tightrope to walk. And there's a lot of expectations from one side of the spectrum and from another side of the spectrum. And obviously a majority of the people probably in America aren't going to necessarily understand fully the Muslim faith. So you have to make it presented in a way that is accessible. And I think they've done a really good job of that. Whereas with the Moon Knight, it seemed a little bit like an occasional thing. This is very steeped in her culture. It's very much an important part of her culture. And her parents don't come off as these kind of strict authoritarians. They love their daughter. They've been a little more lenient with their son, and their daughter is certainly bringing that up. but you see that there is genuine love between the mom, and especially when the dad jumps out in the Hulk outfit, as I mentioned earlier, that moment, every kid wants that moment. That one parent that understands their real love of something. Now, is he clumsy? Is he awkward in doing it? Does it still feel weird to bring your dad to something like this? Yes, because she wants to kind of walk her own path. She's stepping out and wants to walk her own, do her own thing. So having the dad come along doesn't understand. But there's genuine affection here. And I think as strict as they may be, you understand why. So I really appreciate that portrayal as well. And how sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, John. Finish.
And how Iman Vellani and the other two actors really have some fantastic chemistry as father, mother, father, and daughter. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I was definitely going to say the love 100% is there, and that's where, in this case, I think that's where that strictness does come from, is from that love. Now, I'll disagree with you slightly that him jumping out as the Hulk is something she wanted. That's something when she's older. That's something she will look back on. Like right there when she says it's humiliating, she's being 100% honest, because from the point of view of a teenager, I do not want this. But it's the type of thing that when you get older, you look back and be like, oh my God, my parents were awesome. I wish I would have appreciated them.
Yeah, fair.
I think that with, aside from Iman Vellani, who just like nails it, like she is so charming, she is so funny, she's so natural on screen. So that's the highlight. But just below her are her parents. Yeah. The way that relationship is handled, the way they are playing those roles, they are funny, they are specific, to your point, Johnny. But like, it would have been so easy to just make them the heavies. Oh, here's my traditional parents who are like so strict, and I like, this is a big obstacle and I have to, but there's so much love infused in those relationships, and there's so much care taken with the way that they're handled, so that when they come in and say, hey, we're going to let you go to Avengers Con, just here's the way to do it, and he comes in the Hulk thing, it's super funny. But when she turns around and tells them that that's embarrassing, like the genuine hurt on their faces, you feel for them. And when her mom is waiting for her at the end of the episode and has that speech, like at no point do you go, ugh, these parents are so horrible. You're like, these parents are amazing. They're wrong. They're maybe a little overly strict for her. They're not really seeing how important this really is for her, and that's going to be part of the journey. But it would have been so easy to make these parents like one-dimensional, cardboard, like bad parents, and they have really developed them into amazingly likable, funny characters.
Three-dimensional characters. Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Yeah, and they could have Haywarded him, but they didn't. They let them get on their own. So I appreciate that.
We're back on the island. Okay.
That's what we call it, Haywarding. But yeah, giving some love to the two actors, Zenobia Shroff, who plays Muneeba, and Mohan Kapur, who plays Yusuf, her dad. So both of them just great chemistry, and you're right, just fantastic how they connect with her. But let's swing back to something you brought up here, Michael. Iman Vellani. Let's talk about her. I mean, what a performance the new generation of kids, God love them. Most of them are not overwhelmed by these situations. It's incredible to watch. Those of us who grew up in different generations, most of us aside from Vogel, are overwhelmed by things when we confront them for the first time, and like, well, I've got all this pressure or whatever. She seems to be rolling with it like it's not a big deal. These interviews that she's delivered, there's a nice quiet confidence in her. And without sacrificing also the fandom or fangirling that she does occasionally about Robert Downey Jr. It's great to see her embrace this role, have such a confidence with this role, and a care for this character, because although it only came out in 2014, Mike, this character has taken on a life of its own. Oh yeah, has a very strong fandom.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Miss Marvel fans are numerous. I mean, it really is, because that original arc in the comics, I mean, the whole comic run is great, but that original arc that really got people excited when the graphic novel came out, when they collected all the individual issues, like, it's great. People loved it. And I think, to your point, John, I think a lot of times the review bombers of the world feel like, oh, well, when you have a protagonist who's a girl, or who is a different color than you, or is a different culture than you, or a different religion than you, that it somehow alienates. But specificity doesn't sacrifice universality, if that makes sense. Like, to everything you guys are saying, like, Kamala's story is very, very specific. But everything she's dealing with here is universal. I mean, she's Peter Parker. She's any superhero teen who has to sneak out at night. So
Miles
I
Morales.
think that Miles Morales. Like, so I think that they're doing a great job with that, and she is doing a great job. Marvel does this great thing, like when they nail it with the casting, they nail it because the person playing the role basically in our mind is that character. Like Robert Downey Jr. is the original version of like Robert Downey Jr. Like, oh, you're gonna play somebody who maybe like has some substance abuse issues and is really overly confident and goes through some shit and then comes out at the other end. Oh, okay, yeah, like you're basically Tony Stark. And so watching Iman Vellani in these interviews, like fangirling over the MCU when Kamala is fangirling over the Avengers in the show. Like, it's just a great she just fits. She just fits perfectly.
That's a good call. She just fits. I like that description. Shannon, thoughts? What do you think about Iman Vellani? I mean, of course, you're still out there booking jobs, getting in there as an actor, so you're watching her work in this. What stands out to you as an actor watching another actor stepping into a role like this and taking it on and embodying what is essentially now an iconic character in the Marvel universe, now in the MCU?
I mean, I think you look at the Herculean task that she was given in that she, for her first professional job, she is not only the lead of a show, but she's also this character who has meant so much to so many people, and it's such a big step in the realm of diversity. I mean, you know, we've had some issues with the fandom in the past who kind of push back, and you see all of the pressure. I mean, you know, Moses Ingram is dealing a lot with this. I mean, a lot of people are very like, you may not like her performance, but she's dealing with things beyond that. And thus far, I mean, I've read a couple of dumb things, but thus far, Iman Vellani is doing, her performance. She is incredibly charismatic. Now, that is something that, you know, all three of us at one point were actors. Like, that's not something you can teach. Like, that is something that you just have. Now, you can have actors.
I was just born with it.
That's why you kept acting, right, Mike?
Oh, you piece of shit.
That was a joke, by the way. For all of our audience, Mike was a really, really good actor.
Birds! Anyway, I can go this way.
But, you know, that's the type of thing, like, that is the thing, like The Rock has. Like, The Rock has this inane charm that's just something, you know, you're born with. And to top that she has that charisma, she has that charm, but she also, based off of this, she's got a lot of talent, because you do see that embarrassment that she has when the idea that she's going to have to go to Avenger Con with her father, who's dressed up like the Hulk, whose face is painted green, like the embarrassment that she exudes. To me, you know, I have nephews that are a little older than her, and that's the type of embarrassment that you have, because it's not this overplayed, over the top, like, no, it's not James Van Der Beek from Varsity Blues, which, granted, all of our audience might not be old enough to remember that movie, but hers, where it's just like it barely ekes out, like she doesn't know what to say. She does such a good job. And when they're at Avenger Con and you see her looking at that display of Captain Marvel, and you see the love in her eyes that she has for this figure that, you know, she doesn't know, but just the idea of what she represents, it's just so internal, and it bleeds out. And also, she's really, really funny. Now, to her, the way she's handling the press, she's doing awesome. Like, the fact that she's actually giving voice to some of the fan base who are like, the MCU is not 616. Like, she's throwing out like, hey, there's some inconsistencies here. And she talks about like this text relationship that she has with Kevin Feige, where he's like, it's 616 because I say it is. She's like, great, you're wrong. I'm like, it's so funny. And my guess is that this is the beginning of a probably long and very successful career.
Yeah. There's a real possibility that she ends up being the Tony Stark down the road of this entire universe, where she is the one that is appearing in other people's shows or movies to kind of add a little more weight to it. I mean, the day may come where she's playing the Tony Stark to someone else's Tom Holland Spider-Man. I mean, there's so many possibilities as we go forward, because she seems, as Michael said, to have fit, to already be a part of this universe immediately after this first episode. I've seen the second episode, so there's even more of her fitting into this universe that is to come, which I'm not going to reveal. That is great. So I really enjoyed her. Mike, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, her like talking about her fitting and talking about, you know, her kind of like being like what Shannon was saying, giving voice to the fandom.
Yes.
I also thought that's why the way they opened this episode was so brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, I think in the comic, you know, you sort of like dive in on her fanfic, but I love the idea that they kind of moved fan fiction to her creating these YouTube videos where she's just like doing her take on things, and the way they did all the visuals. I mean, the visuals throughout are amazing, but this whole sort of like hand-drawn Endgame moment and kind of like narrating through the Battle of Endgame through Captain Marvel coming in. And, you know, I also think they did a very smart thing, and they took all the things that a lot of people complain about that Endgame finale, and for Kamala, those are all pluses.
Yeah.
Like when we were like, oh, Captain Marvel came in at the last minute and she finally showed up because she's been gone the entire movie, and then she left again and she's always gone, and she's like, guys, the Avengers were going down and here she comes. She's amazing. Save the day. Punch Thanos in the face. It was awesome. And then, you guys are all like, oh, she abandoned us. She didn't abandon us. She's got stuff to do. You guys don't know. The universe is really big. And so like they took a character who is a little bit divisive for the MCU. There are people that absolutely love Carol Danvers in the version of her in the MCU, and there are people that feel like that she wasn't handled perfectly well. She came in at the last minute. We thought she was going to be a bigger deal in Endgame than she was. And the way that they've taken all those things and wrapped that into all the things that Kamala loves about her, I thought was very, very smart.
Yeah, that's a good point. Shannon, let's move on to something else here with this presentation of this character. We get Bruno, Matt Lintz. We get Nakia, who is played by Yasmeen Fletcher. I think that's right. Both those actors coming in to kind of decorate her world as friends. Do you like that? Do you like the way they're kind of presented here? Bruno being a big part of the Ms. Marvel in the comics. Do you like the way this was presented to you as a person watching from the outside?
Yeah, definitely. This will be a situation where we do talk about Bruno.
Oh, I want to apologize to everyone that I walked
Silencio Bruno.
Yes, I mean, we don't see a whole lot from Nakia, but we do get a lot of the relationship between Kamala and Bruno. It's interesting because like I have not read that Miss Marvel, that initial Miss Marvel series. So from a writing perspective, I do wish we would have found out a little bit more about Bruno, because I'm kind of like, wait, does he live in a convenience store? Like, what? He's airbrushing an outfit in the middle of like a 7-Eleven. Like, this doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense to me. But then going and like, I actually, looked up some stuff online, and then when we see Kamala's mom give that bag of food and say the bottom one is spicy, the top one's for Nona, and I'm like, all right, well that's like Italian grandma, I believe. Right. So yeah, you really like this relationship between the two of them, and the moment where they're at Avenger Con and he asks her where the gloves are, the photon gloves, and that sort of look, because I mean, and again, I didn't read that much, so it sure seems like he has a crush on her. I don't know if that's gonna be a romance, but you could kind of see like a little bit of heartbreak on his face. But yeah, thus far their relationship, it's very, very sweet, and again, I'm getting shades of Peter and Ned right now. And the only bit that we get with Nakia that I did really like is when Kamala gets hit in the face by Zoe with the dodgeball. And you see she immediately runs up and defends her friend. And that seems like it's kind of a forecast of what that relationship is going to be going down the line.
But don't we see them at prayer in the mosque as well?
No, John, stop spoiling things that we're going to see in the next episode. We didn't see it yet.
Michael, what do you think about how they're portraying?
I think you need to stop talking before you spoil episode 2. I think. No, I think they're great. I think Shannon's right. We don't get a lot of Nakia, but as someone who's read the comics, I think Shannon points out exactly where they're going to go with her. Yeah. I think that even in the little bit we got, I'm excited to see more because I think she is a great character.
Yeah.
And the Bruno stuff was great. It is funny because when I first watched it, him airbrushing the Captain Marvel suit, like I watch things as a fan and then I sort of watch it sometimes as did they do this all right? Like what's the translation? And it took me 2 times because the first time I was like, yeah, of course he'd be working on that there. Like that's where he's working. Like that's where he literally lives there half the time. Like, he's there all the time. And then it was in the second episode. I'm like, they maybe should have explained that. That's maybe going to be a little confusing. He's airbrushing this in the middle of the store. So it is funny because I did notice that. But I do think, and I love that you said you're getting shades of Peter and Ned, because I think what's wonderful about this relationship is that they're not doing the traditional girl who has a crush on a boy and like doesn't know how to talk to him. Like these two are best friends. They are Peter and Ned. They just happen to be a straight boy and a straight girl, so that like the option of Peter and Ned also being a Peter and MJ is on the table. And I think that's a really fun relationship and a dynamic to play. And I think that the sequence, the scene where they were sitting on top of the roof.
Yes.
And she was just talking about her family and talking about like when she's like, brown girls from Jersey don't save the world. Yeah. And he's like, yeah, they do. Like you can do whatever you want. Like you're Kamala Khan. Like that just solidified this dynamic. You're like, they care about each other so much. He cares about her so much. He cares about her so much and maybe does like her a little bit. And having read the comics, I do know where they're probably going to go with it. And it's going to be quite a ride.
I enjoy both of those. And I've seen the second episode, so there's more with Yasmeen, and I think she's fantastic in this role. I'm not going to say what's more, but just that I enjoy her more. And we do get more with Bruno, which is great as well. Yeah, so just throwing that out there. And let's move on to this, because we'll talk about the powers in the next section here. Okay. But let's hit this section first. None of us, as I said, are Muslim, but she is Pakistani Canadian, Iman Vellani, portraying a Pakistani American girl in Jersey City. Do you like the way that they presented this heritage, the Muslim heritage, or the Muslim faith rather, and the connections that it has in her life with her family, with her brother, the dynamics, but also, do you feel it was presented in a way that was respectful? Like, it's not like she hates her faith or hates her or any of that. It's very ingrained. Did you like that it was matter of fact, yet also stood out? Mike?
Well, yes. Okay. I hear, I have a feeling we might see the mosque in the next episode.
I don't know if you do.
I heard somewhere, so I'm curious to see that. But I thought in this first episode, I did like how they handled it. I thought they just peppered it throughout. I thought it all felt very natural and authentic. It didn't feel like they were trying to hit me over the head with everything. It's just like, this is a very religious family. And I think to your point, the issue with representation sometimes is if you have a show where you have one Muslim character, that character actually has to do the heavy lifting of like representing all Muslims. That's the problem, is like when you have a show with like, here's 5 white characters and 1 black character and 1 Latin character and 1 Asian character, those characters all have to be like, okay, well, I'm respectful of this and I'm respectful of that. When you have an entire family of Muslims, you are allowed to show lots of different perspectives on it. Yep. So it's not an issue that Kamala kind of strains against what her Muslim parents want out of her and don't want out of her. And I think that her being someone who grew up in Jersey City, who is obsessed with all the things she's obsessed with, it makes sense that she would be like, ugh. And I think it's going to show that there's lots of ways to be a Muslim, which is what is actually true.
Yeah. Shannon, thoughts on how they're portraying the faith here, at least for the limited amount we got exposed here in this first episode?
Yeah, I thought it was great. And like, I kind of want to loop in Zenobia Shroff's performance in this as well, because she also played Kumail Nanjiani's mom in The Big Sick. And it's very similar dynamic how they have set up that there is an older sibling, a boy who is seems to be much more devout than the younger sibling. But also Zenobia Shroff, she's so funny, but she's also mastered that withering look of maternal disapproval, which is something that, like, I went back and watched a little bit of The Big Sick, because when that was my favorite movie of the year when it came out. And just watching her performance, I'm like, there's so much there's so much to this because, you have this mom who wants the best for her children, but she wants the best for them her way. Yeah. And that is something that was probably passed on from her mom to that, for generations. That's at least what it seems like. So something that helped with me, like I had a difficult time in some of the crowd scenes understanding some of the dialogue. Now, this has nothing to do with performance. This is an audio mix issue, and maybe it's just my TV. So I turned on the subtitles for the second time I watched, and there was a lot of sort of Islamic terminology, which I did not catch the first time because I don't know the terms. So looking back, like I was able to kind of pick up on a lot more things, being like, okay, this kind of means, I think this kind of means this, it kind of means this, and I think it's helpful for the audience because if you are inclined, you can pause and be like, what does that mean? Now I know what this means. I thought it was portrayed really well because, again, I grew up in a Southern Baptist household, and like I enjoyed my church life, but there were definitely times like, mom and dad, okay, we get it. God said this, God said that, Jesus said this, Jesus said that. Like you get, it can be a little trying for a kid. And again, like. And I think that, again, I think this is one of those things that sort of transcends faith. Like this is something that every kid who grows up in a house of faith has to deal with because it's something that is put upon you. It's something that you sort of inherit. And so it's just a different point of view. And I think the way that they're doing it right now is really, really smart and very well done.
Yeah, I mean, connecting to it from my level as a son of immigrants, she's this daughter of immigrants, and then the idea of religion, that being my father read the Bible every morning, every Sunday morning. It was, so there was that feeling of having to adhere to the words of this kind of thing. So when you're a dreamer, it doesn't really fit in the mix. It took a long time for my dad to really accept where I wanted to go with my life. So that's a thing that you kind of confront and deal with and navigate. So seeing shades of that in the story, I really felt connected to that in the way it's been portrayed. And I like that they're doing this as a matter of fact. And by that, I mean, they don't go, hey, she's Pakistani and a Muslim. They go like, hey, this is just what it is. And boom, 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 catch up. Yeah. And I love
you get it. Yeah. You're absolutely like you get to that opening scene where she comes downstairs and you just get all the family. Her brother is praying while mom is giving her advice, and then dad is giving her advice, and the whole thing. And and there's not a moment of like, let us explain what a Muslim family is like. They just throw you into it, and it's just like, crazy insanity as she's getting ready for her driver's test. And I think you're right. It's matter of fact is exactly the way they do it.
Yeah, and it's up to you to catch up. And there'll be more. Having seen the second episode, there's more of that. So I imagine the whole series.
We get it. You saw the second episode.
The whole series, it feels like it's going to be that way, and I appreciate that. Let the audience do a little bit of work, and I like that. You catch up. You turn on the subtitles. You catch the references. You do the work. I appreciate that. That makes it feel more natural and real and organic, which allows you to kind of instinctively connect to it because you know that from your own experience and your own point of view, what you've gone through that's kind of similar to that as well. Well, let's move on to the big thing, and that's the powers here. There is a power change. Kamala forms crystalline structures that disintegrate. We saw her use her powers right at the end. So do you like the way her powers are brought about here in the show? Of course, there's more to come, but do you like the way the powers are introduced here as opposed to using the Inhuman storyline possibly? It seems like it's familial connected with the bracelets. Do you like that? Shannon, I guess I'll go with you first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, my exposure to Kamala Khan has been through some of the Marvel animated stuff. So I've seen her with her embiggening powers and whatnot. I love the fact that it's like an inherited heirloom. Like I think it's so cool that it is familial, as you said, John. Like, they have this discussion about her grandmother, about her maternal grandmother, and how the moment that Zenobia Shroff sees that bracelet, like, that is junk. So it is it's a little bit of a mystery. Like, okay, what is this thing? Where did it come from? The moment that she puts it on and it expands, and you see sort of that energy cloud start to wash over her, and we get a brief glimpse. She sort of falls back. We get a brief glimpse of these figures in shadow with kind of glowy wide eyes. Like, it's really that's the thing that I want to find out more about. And this is not a ding at all. I know there have been people, especially with Obi-Wan, be like, well, why this, why that? And it's like, well, questions will be answered. That's what the show is designed for. Right. So I'm very curious to find out about that, because, you know, with the Inhumans thing, it was the Terrigen Mists. Like right. This is like, it seems like this is some sort of alien artifact that she has inherited. Mm-hmm. Getting to the actual, are we going to talk about the action or yeah,
if you want, go there if you want, as a connective tissue to the powers. Yeah, go ahead.
So this is the one area
I knew it. By the way, I actually agree. So I'm not actually like, I'm not making fun of Shannon, because I felt the same way. But like, because when you do Geek Buddies, whenever you watch these things, these two assholes are just in my head. So like, I'll be watching something and I'll be like, oh, John's gonna say he wants a whole backstory for that character with 2 lines, and then I'll be watching, and I was watching the action, and I was like, "Oh, Shannon's gonna have some things to say about this."
So I am not a big fan of super heroic action scenes where the superhero is the reason things go sideways.
Okay.
The fact that
and this happens at Avengers Con, right? Exactly. Go ahead. Or
the crystalline energy structures which hit Ant-Man, the giant Ant-Man head, which then bounces and then hits the cable with Mjolnir. And yes, she does save Zoe, which awesome, super heroic, but it just gives me those fantastic 2005 Fantastic Four vibes, where like they have that big bridge sequence where they're like, hey, they saved the day. I'm like, this was their fault. So that is the type of thing that is not a director thing, that is a writing thing. And having like, I know, like I read that the her saving Zoe is comics accurate, like it's not at Avengers Con, like it's at a party, but the fact that it was kind of her fault, and granted, yes, she's a younger hero, she's learning to use these powers, this is the first time they've appeared, it just is a little unsatisfying for me as an audience member that she's basically fixing the mess that she made. It's a little stronger when it occurs outside of her.
Isn't that what Endgame is? Fixing the mess that they made, I feel like.
Oh my God, here we go again.
I hear your point.
Here we go again. No,
Michael, thoughts on the powers?
I disagree slightly, although I agree with the spirit of what Shannon's saying. Yeah. I think it's okay, particularly because she had no idea what was going on. This kind of just happened. I think it's okay that she ended up having to sort of clean up the mess that she caused. I just wish, and they were going for the fact that she was completely stunned. She was like, what the hell just happened? So it's not like she's all of a sudden going to dive in and start doing like super heroic stuff. But I think that whole action sequence, that very brief action sequence, could have been handled a little better. I'm not sure of the physics of that Scott Lang Ant-Man head that seems to roll one direction and then just for reasons that I don't understand scientifically rolls in the other direction. Like it was heavy enough to cause damage, but light enough that it was bouncing and rolling back and forth. I was like, I don't really understand that.
Yeah.
And then when Thor's hammer came down and Mjolnir came down, that hit Zoe so hard I think she's dead. Like just the way it was shot, like it was like even I was watching it with my brother and he was like half paying attention, but the hammer hit Zoe and he just goes, whoa! Like she just gets wrecked by that thing. And so I think like just the way it was all shot, it was like, I think it could have been handled in a way where Kamala was a little bit more like stunned, but holy shit, I caused this, I need to try and stop it. Right. And did some stuff. And then like even the catching of Zoe, I think they could have made a little bit more of a moment out of. Like that was my only issue in the entire episode. That one little sequence, I was like, I feel like I have a little Shannon in my head going, well, I could have shot this better.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tight space, and I think we see the limits of the budget, but also they tried to fit it in what would look like an Avengers a con.
Yeah.
Especially a first con, so it's not going to be massive. It's going to be somewhat confined, a first con, so I understand that. So, but I hear you. What about do you have an issue with the powers, the way they're doing the powers, Mike?
No, so like, I mean, look, I think that when we first talked about Ms. Marvel coming to Disney Plus, I think we hit on it right away. I was like, there's no Inhumans.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, I guess, but we don't talk about that series because nobody wants to talk about it. But like, they didn't do. There were that like she came about in the comics at a time where it really seemed like because Fox had the X-Men, Marvel Comics was like, "Fuck you, we're gonna go big with Inhumans." Like that's really what it felt like. And so the Inhumans were everywhere. The Terrigen Mists were loose. Like people all over the place were just becoming Inhumans. And so she came about in that time. So that's like a big part of her origin story.
Yeah.
And there was just no way they were going to be able to do that. Like there's not a big enough Inhumans presence in the MCU for that to all of a sudden be a thing. And we don't have mutants yet, so they couldn't just flip it over and be like, well, this is her mutant power. So they were going to have to figure something else out. And then I think the stretchiness is, you know, as a lot of people said, we know the Fantastic Four is coming. We know that Reed Richards has not the exact powers that she has in the comics that Miss Marvel has, but similar enough. And they probably didn't want two stretchy heroes. I also think it's a budget thing. To really do her powers on the big screen in live action the way that they are in the comics, like that's incredibly expensive. So I think for a lot of reasons, they found themselves in the position where they were like, we kind of have to do something different.
Yeah.
I am sure that wasn't an easy decision to make, but I think the way they handled it was good. I think that I'm curious to see between her and Carol Danvers and Monica Rambeau, like they all sort of have light-ish powers in different ways, and I'm curious to see how those all come together. And I'm curious to see, I think it was a smart thing in a show that is all about somebody's passion versus their heritage.
Yeah.
And someone trying to balance that out, having the thing that allows them to follow their passion come from their heritage, I think is an interesting narrative choice. So like Shannon said, I'm really curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, and nothing says they aren't starting out with these powers and that they can't expand down the road to be kind of more similar to what she has in the comics. So we should.
And I think they very smartly, and we saw it in the trailer, and this is how she saves Zoe. It's like even though she's just making light constructs, she's basically doing the stretchy hand thing, just with the light construct. So I think we're going to see shades of what was in the comic just sort of translated into a different way for the MCU.
And in this, no, I'm just joking. Let's go to this post-credits scene real quick. The U.S. Department of Damage.
Well, wait.
Okay.
Can we talk about Avengers Con for a minute?
Yeah, sure. Let's swing to that. I saw some people criticizing the episode for this, that they felt it was a little bit like the MCU or Marvel flexing on themselves, having a meta Avenger Con, which might actually happen now, apparently, an Avenger Con for themselves within their own show. So what did you guys think about this? That's fair, Mike. You wanted to take this first?
Yeah, that is the entire foundation of this character's basis is that she is the fangirl in the Marvel universe who gets like she's a fangirl of the Avengers who gets to join the Avengers.
Right.
So
we hope down the road. We don't know. Yeah, right.
I mean, I'm talking about the comics, but yes. Okay. In the comics, she gets to join the Avengers, and she's the one who's sitting there being like, I literally write fan fiction about these guys, and now I am fighting with them. Like, that is who she is in Marvel Comics. Sure. And so to bring her into the MCU, she kind of has to be an MCU fangirl. And what better way to show what a fangirl she is than put her somewhere where anyone who's been to a comic book convention would go, yeah, that is actually how we all act in real life. And it is natural that in a universe where there really are superheroes, this is how people would react. So was it a little bit of a flex? Maybe. But like, I think it was a really funny flex. And I think they did a lot of really, really smart stuff. Like setting Avengers Con at the home of Captain America.
Yes.
A place that we have come back to again and again in the MCU, I thought was great. Like them just walking into Avengers Con to that Captain America Star Spangled Man playing was, as a geek, I was like, that's great. And then all of the little Easter eggs, like the t-shirt of Captain America's ass where he was like, you're welcome, America. Or like the Asgard Pride shirt, like all of the different things that were there. The big, like, sort of, what do you call it? Not the Ant-Man, the thank you for what you did for us, for your sacrifice, the Tony Stark.
The mural.
Yes, the mural. Thank you. I was like, this is what happens when you're out late the night before you do a Geek Buddies review. You forget words. But yeah, no, I just thought it was all really fun, and it sets the stage for who she is as a character. So it's not, I don't think, like, I guess that's the thing. If it was just some other show, if She-Hulk all of a sudden decided to have an Avengers con and you saw all this stuff, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I mean, that was cute, but like, did we really need it? But with this show, I think with Miss Marvel and Kamala's character, you do really actually, it informs who she is.
Yeah, 1,000% agreed. I like the Avenger Con. I think it made sense for who she was and what they're doing in the show. And yeah, it could be seen as a flex, but look, after 10 years and all those billions of dollars, I think they've earned the flex. Shannon, what did you think about the Avenger Con being in this first episode?
I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. Like, this is a flex that they have earned.
Yeah.
And it also sort of informs the audience on how much the general public knows about the superheroics of this world. I mean, the fact that like Captain America's out there, Tony Stark's out there, Black Widow's out there, it's kind of like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. Tony Stark was a famous guy. We found out in Black Widow that she's been on the cover of magazines.
Right.
The fact that they have the Guardians out there is kind of like, oh, okay. Like, apparently one of the Easter eggs, I did not see this. I looked it up. But apparently one of the Easter eggs is Star-Lord Quill has written a book.
Yes.
Like, there's some sort of biography. And so it would make sense that even though we may not have seen, or the public may not have seen that, the battle in Endgame, that Quill would have talked about, like, hey, I was a kid in the 80s when I got abducted by these aliens, and now I've come back as a hero. I thought it was it's so much fun, and knowing that Comic-Con is coming up in a little over a month, it got me excited for San Diego in July.
I do. Well, and I remember when WandaVision came out, this was like a big thing we all discussed because Monica Rambeau and Darcy and Jimmy Woo, they were all talking, and they were like talking about Captain Marvel showing up in the battle in Endgame. And I think we all had this big discussion of like, well, how would they really know the specifics of what happened? Like, is this just Marvel kind of being a little bit lazy? But now, like, this whole opening of the show where Kamala's like, oh yeah, and I learned a lot from Scott Lang's podcast. He seems like a great guy. And you do realize that, like, in this world, even though we don't see it, like, all of these characters would be interviewed or talk or write books, or there would be documentaries about them, or because like there would be so much curiosity. Like, in a real world situation, if we had shit like that going on, we would all be taking every bit of information everywhere we could. And so seeing that there are a bunch of kids that do that, totally valid.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that she's relatable throughout this first episode. I mean, she's a struggling YouTuber. She's looking at her views.
Oh my gosh, so funny. 2 subscribers.
Johnny was like, oh, it's too close to home. Too close to home.
I'm glad I'm not down there. But yeah, you're looking at that, and there's a connectability because the big ones are few and far between. Most everyone else who does that is struggling to kind of get some foothold in the sphere, and it's not easy to do. So shout out to her that she was doing it. But the animations, all the stuff, I love the way when she's talking with the principal, it splits into 2 different camera angles. That's so awesome to see. So those little things that are decorated throughout of how she sees the world makes so much sense that she'd want to go to an Avenger Con in the first episode, make that a driving force, because it connects all the fans too, who are massive MCU fans. And imagine if you're watching it, you are a big Marvel fan, you could understand that or connect to this impetus and drive. So I like that they put that in there. And by the way, the podcast is called Big Me, Little Me. So I love that. I wish someone would do that. Paul Rudd must have time to do that every once, like a 30-minute episode every week. It'd be hilarious. So let's move on to this post-credit scene here. The U.S. Department of Damage Control with Cleary and Deever. So, did we like the way this was done? I think that's my one criticism here is I really didn't want to see this. Let us soak more time with them and the world that they're creating here for her before we kind of introduce this. But I get that this is a limited run, so you got to kind of get the overall antagonists, quote unquote, kind of presented here. So do you like that they're a part of this? Did you like this post-credit scene, or did it kind of throw you off from the vibe you were feeling at the end of the first episode? Shannon.
I actually really liked it. I think the Department of Damage Control is a fun thing to sort of use in the expanding MCU. I think it's actually a smart thing, especially because Shield is gone, Sword is up in space. I think that's fun. Like, I did not love the performance of Alysia. I think Reiner is her name. It was a little too gum smacky. Like, hey, what do you think of this? Yeah. Like, it was not.
I didn't like it. I think, yeah.
It was not handled, that delicately. Mm-hmm. But the guy from Succession, Arian Moayed, I think his name is. I really like him, and I really liked him in No Way Home. And it seems like he could be along the lines of like a Coulson, a Jimmy Woo, an Everett Ross. I mean, he could be one of those fun government characters to kind of pop up. And the fact that he is presenting right now, at least, as a bit of an antagonist, this is going to be I'm not aware of Miss Marvel's Rogues Gallery, but he seems like a fun recurring antagonist who may work with you, may not. So again, I didn't like Alyssa Raima's performance, but the idea of them using damage control, I think, is actually very smart.
Well, maybe you didn't like the way she was directed to perform the character. Maybe that's a more accurate term. I don't know. We'll see as it goes forward. But
I'm not putting anything on Adil and Bilal.
Okay, fair
They're
enough.
great.
Wow. Okay. Michael, I think my overall point, and I think my overall feeling, rather, and this scene kind of proves my point, is they're starting to come up with these antagonists that are comical as opposed to more serious, which I felt at times from Nick Fury when he was both a protagonist and antagonist. Shield, Hydra, Everett Ross, Coulson, Thunderbolt Ross. Like, I felt there was more weight and gravity to their approach. And it feels like these organizations they've been presenting, starting with Jimmy Woo and others, doesn't feel as kind of deep or threatening or fearful. And it seems a little lighthearted. And I think I miss having a little more of the grittiness to these
like a heavier villain.
Yeah, a heavier villain. Yeah, so
like Hayward.
He's part of the comical thing, I think I would say. So nice try. Yeah, because he's there's no weight to him because he's one-dimensional. That was the problem. All right.
No, I think I'm more with Shannon. Okay. Execution of the scene might not be great, but I actually really liked it. The Department of Damage Control, even though we first saw him as the agent in No Way Home, the Department of Damage Control is at the very beginning of Homecoming.
Right.
They come in and they come in to clean up the mess after the Battle of New York, and kind of like that's what kicks off Adrian Toombs' whole story.
Tyne Daly coming in, throwing her weight around. Yeah. Don't mess with Tyne.
So I think it's an interesting organization that we haven't seen a ton of. I think that I'm excited to see what happens because of his performance in No Way Home. In the very brief period of time that he was in there, he was very comical, he was funny, but he also did seem threatening. Like he did play this sort of like, I'm gonna handle MJ one way, but then I'm gonna Ned. He's like, oh yeah, I got guys in chairs. All my guys are guys in chairs. And he's like, yeah, right. And he's like, so you are his assistant. You helped him do all those things. He kind of had that whole back and forth. So I think for the tone of what Miss Marvel seems to be, which is this kind of lighter, more fun, not that there aren't emotional stakes, and I think we're going to get to some deep places, but I think he and the Department of Damage Control might be the right level of government threat for Kamala Khan.
Yeah, that might be the cause and effect. You're going younger with these heroes, so therefore you have to go a little less adult with the approach with some of these organizations, in my opinion. All right, let's wrap up here. We're at 52 minutes, so let's wrap it up. Mike, any final words on this episode?
I think we all said that the visuals were great, and we talked about the opening sequence of her YouTube video, but I think that, and Shannon mentioned it, but like the way that they just infused that we are living in Kamala's world. So like when she and Bruno are talking about what kind of Captain Marvel costume she can be, and it's just that long shot and you're just watching all of the graffiti on the walls come to life, or when she and Bruno are texting each other and the text messaging is appearing on the street and on the walls and on the neon signs. Like, cool. I just think they did, to Shannon's point, it's really great when you have directors who really know what they want to do and go after it. So even though this episode only had one very minor action sequence at the end where we first see her powers, it was so visually exciting that it didn't feel like it was draggy, or it didn't feel like it was just a bunch of plot. Like, there was so much really fun to be had with the way that she views the world, or even when she's going over the plan of how they're going to get to Avengers Con, and you see like her drawing her family and drawing all this, like it's just such a visually exciting interpretation. And I really hope that we continue with those things throughout the entire run of the series.
Okay, Shannon, final words on this opening episode?
I mean, I super enjoyed it. Like coming off of Moon Knight, like I was not the biggest fan of Moon Knight. I know some of our audience really, really liked it. It didn't check all the boxes for me. Starting this off, so just so energetically, and you can tell the creative team, the directors and the writer, I mean, they have a very specific vision for this show, which based off of one episode in, it seems like they're really, really nailing. I mean, I feel very optimistic about where the show is going based off of what we got. And in terms of where the characters are going to go, I mean, the moment where Zenobia, again, like I'm a big Zenobia Shroff stan, apparently. The moment that she tosses that Hulk costume at Kamala, I mean, it's so heartbreaking. And to see the way her parents view her, and as an audience knowing where she's going to get to, that journey, that dynamic that she has is going to be, I imagine, very exciting to watch. So I'm really looking forward to where the show is going.
Yeah. Like, you got more to say? Okay. Go
ahead. Just really quickly off of that. I mean, I just wanted to, as I said at the beginning, you know, like I was kind of filled with relief, and like based on this first episode, and it could go any which way. We could get halfway through this run and be like, oh, they really took a turn. I don't know what's going on. But if they maintain what they're doing right now, this show will be very high on my list. And when we do the order of Disney Plus shows, and I think that for Marvel's future, for the MCU's future, it needs to be there because Miss Marvel is a huge part of the next era of the MCU.
Great points, Mike. Yeah, I 100% agree with both of you. I really enjoyed it. It's a great opening episode for a series that really introduces you into the character's life, and allows you to connect. It's unusual. It's a new approach. We've seen shades of this approach, but not from a female point of view. And that's been nice and eye-opening and really cool to dive into. And as I said, it's three dudes talking about it, yet we connected with this character and what she's going through and the universality. And it's very much gravitating to what's going on in the younger generation. So it's appealing to that, the way they work, the way they talk, the way they operate, the way they see the world. All of that is there for you to kind of catch up to and connect to and have fun enjoying a new perspective, a new approach into the MCU. And of course, Iman Vellani is the leader of all of that. Her performance is so great. Her charm, her energy, her approach to this character, everything. Bisha K, Ali, the two directors, everybody involved in this understands the approach that they're going with here, and they are in it knee deep. And Kevin Feige, of course, approving this with Victoria Alonso, all of them on board with this and where it's going. And I like the way they presented it. And there's more to come, obviously, with the next few episodes. It's going to be a joy to see where it all goes and who gets presented and what storylines get presented and how much more we get with Iman Vellani as this character and how much she's going to grow into the character, I imagine, as the season goes along. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see that for sure. And I love the vibrancy. I mean, it's a big bright colors. I do enjoy it when it's used well, and it's very much used well in this show for sure. All right, well, there we go. That's our spoiler review for episode 1, Generation Y of Ms. Marvel here from Disney Plus and Marvel Studios. Thank you all so much for watching or for listening to us. You can always listen to us on the podcast stream as well. Shannon, what do we have to tell?
Yeah, I'd like to follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies. On Instagram, at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at @Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MK2. And if you would like to follow Mr. Roca, it is at The Roca Says.
Mikey?
If you enjoyed this spoiler video and enjoy any of our other videos and want us to continue to make more videos for you, just like Kamala does, here is what you can do for us. Hit that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, get him more followers than Kamala.
Come on! I don't have superpowers.
Leave your comments below. What did you think of Ms. Marvel? What did you think of the series? Did it live up to your expectations? What do you think of the power switch? Where do you think things are going to go? Let us know your thoughts below. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere podcasts are available, leave us some stars, leave us some comments. Helps us go up in the rankings so more people can find us. And as always, the best thing that you guys can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, and tell everybody to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
go. And a big shout out to Carbon Health, who powers and sponsors us here on the Geek Buddies and on the Outlaw Nation channel. Got any healthcare questions or needs or concerns? Head on over to carbonhealth.com. See if they've got a facility near you. They also offer virtual care in case you can't go into a facility. They've got 100+ locations all over the country, 50+ locations in California alone. And if you're looking to get COVID testing, well, they do a lot. They've done over 2 million tests at their locations. You can also pick up at-home testing packets that they sell there at their locations, and get the app as well. Download it as a dock in your pocket to answer any of your healthcare questions, concerns, or needs from Carbon Health. Go to carbonhealth.com. All right, thank you all so much for joining us. We'll certainly be back reviewing every episode of Ms. Marvel, so stay tuned for all of that, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new spoiler review episode here from the
Geek
Buddies.